Okay, we are going to look at an example problem, a practice problem on the interaction of charged particles. So imagine that we have three objects. Object A, object B, and object C. We know that object A is positively charged, but we do not know the charge states of object B or object C. Now we're going to bring these objects close together two at a time. When A and B are brought close together, they repel. When A and C are brought close together, they attract. So I have two questions. First, what can we say about the relative charge states of these three objects? And second, what will happen when I bring object B and C close to one another? So we're going to look at the second one first. What happens when I bring object B and C close to one another? All right, we're told that when object A is brought close to object B, they repel. We know that like charges repel. So if like charges repel, the charge of A has to equal the sign of the charge of A, sign, has to equal the sign of the charge on B. So we're told A is positive, therefore B must also be positive. Charge A is positive, therefore object B must also be positive because they repel. Okay, like charges repel. What about when object A was brought close to object C? In this case, we were told that they attracted. When A and C got together, they stuck together. They attracted to one another. Now we have to remember that could mean one of two things. We could have, possibility one, is we know that opposites attract. If that were true and object A is positive, since A is positive, that tells us that C would be negative. So that's one possibility. Object C could be negative. But something else attracts to charged particles, positively charged particles, neutral particles. So another possibility is that neutral attract charged. Since A is positive, this would imply that C was neutral. So under both conditions, whether C was negative or C was neutral, it would attract to particle A as shown in the experiment. So I can't distinguish between whether or not it's negative or neutral. But I do know it's not positive. Why do I know it's not positive? Well, if C was positive and A was positive, they would repel. Okay, so all I can say about the relative charge states of these three particles is that A is positive, B is positive, and C is either negative or neutral. Now, if I bring B next to C, what would happen? Does that help delineate any more information about particle object C? If B is brought next to C, what would happen? Well, we've learned in our first experiment that object B is positive. Nope, I shouldn't make that blue. That could get confusing. All right, we know from our first experiment that B is positive. Well, now I'm sort of left with the same situation as I was in the second experiment. If B is positive and C I know isn't positive but is negative, if C is negative, these will attract. If B is positive and C is, C is neutral, these will attract. So under all conditions, since I know C is not positive, I'm going to see object B and C attract. So I'm still stuck with knowing A and B are the same and both positive, given that A is positive, and that C is either negative or neutral. All right, good job.